So we're going through some of these free agent moves here in the NFL. A lot of them today. So quarterback-wise, you got Darnold to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota to the Commies. Jameis Winston to Cleveland. Jacoby Brissett to the Patriots. Tyrod Taylor to the Jets. And Drew Lock to the Giants.
Yeah, so just, none of those are anything other than backups. A couple of them mentors.
Well, Darnold will start.
Darnold will probably start. Although Minnesota may address it in the draft, I would assume. I think they're picking 12th, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm very interested to see what happens in the NFL draft. Obviously, we assume 1, 2, 3 are going to be quarterbacks. And then after that, how much do teams love Penix, Nix, and McCarthy? Because you're sitting there with Minnesota at, I think it's 12 or 13. Is the quarterback you like there? Or do you need to move up to 8 to get him? Are we going to get 5 quarterbacks to go in the first 10 picks? I'm just intrigued because we don't know what teams think. We know the top 3 seemingly everyone wants. And we're going to
pick 11th, by the way.
Oh, 11th. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3. After that, like you could see one of these guys go. You could see all 3 go. You could see some fall into the second round because you listen to talking heads and Mel Kiper could tell you all he want that Penix is going to be number 12 to the Vikings. But if the Vikings are 11, but if the Vikings don't like him, they're not going to waste a pick on him.
I could see them winning this game. I could see them losing this game.
It drives me nuts when draft analysts pretend to have any sort of idea what the Minnesota Vikings want to do at quarterback. But I'll tell you what they don't want long-term. Sam Darnold is your quarterback.
Yeah. Well, Ryan Grubb was out at Bo Nix Pro Day today.
Yeah. Yeah. The Ducks just had their pro day in general.
No, I know, but Ryan Grubb was there.
Yeah.
Checking out Bo Nix.
Well,
what do you think about that?
I think a lot of teams are checking out Bo
Drew
Nix.
Lock is gone, so
Yes.
that means that the Seahawks will likely draft quarterback.
I would assume
At they pick 16th.
Yeah. Do
Is
they
that
take
right? 16th? Yeah.
Do they take one at 16? Do you take one in the second round? I mean,
Well, I don't think they have a second round pick. They go from 16 to 68 or something like that.
Interesting.
They have 2 3s, but no 2. So if they're going to do a quarterback, it's a lot of people are linking Grubb to Penix, of course, because from their Washington days. So that could be at 16 or Nix or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Huh? But they're probably getting rid of Drew Lock and they have Geno. They're probably going to draft They're going to draft a guy.
One would assume.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
But it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to spend the first round pick on him.
I know.
You feel comfortable with Geno. Do you address it with one of you're right. They have the round 1 and then they pick 78th and 81st. So they're 2 are sandwiched right there in the third round. Russ was a third round pick. I know,
but this quarterback, so this draft class, are there
again, this goes back to just
are there guys in the mid rounds because most of the quarterbacks everybody talks about are all just first round or early second round.
Yes, but we just and this comes down to what individual teams think. Like Russ was an afterthought. We didn't think anything of Russ. We didn't think of anything of Dak when he was coming out. So after you get by those top 6, right? Because McCarthy, Penix, and Nix would, in some order, are going to be that's going to be your 1 through 6, and then once you get beyond that, then you get into what, like Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina. Who else? The kid out of Tulane, I think it's like Pratt, who I've seen play one game, and that was the USC game. Tennessee's got one in Joe Milton. That I've seen some people think that is like just a big raw prospect, huge arm.
I don't know,
but they're all the definition of projects.
Yeah, I bet they take one at 16.
Yeah,
I bet they're finding their guy.
Yeah.
New coach, he wants to get his guy.
Yeah, I would assume. And
so
that's
the
thing
is
if you take one at 16, the pressure isn't like you take someone in the top 3. You can sit a guy when you take him 16.
Or maybe they trade up. Maybe they get aggressive.
It's possible. If you feel like, I've always said, if you feel like your guy's on the board and it's a quarterback, you do what you got to do to go get him. But some of the price tags on these things are nuts. Like, if you want to move up into the top 3, I mean, they're saying, it's going to cost you 2 1s, 2 2s, and possibly a player. You look at like what the Panthers gave up, and then buyer beware because now you're stuck with Bryce Young.
Yeah, I guess some of the Vancouver Ford text line reminded us that Fields is still sitting out there, so I guess you could trade for him.
Yeah, but boy,
that's not.
It sure feels like nobody, and I mean no one, wants him as their starting quarterback. And
that's not inspiring. You already have him. You have Geno Smith.
Boy, if you're Chicago,
I mean, he's not the same player, but you know what I mean.
I'm not sure who botched the whole thing. Well, I mean, Chicago did a nice job in acquiring picks, but they have botched the Justin Fields thing. Like, there's no market for him anymore. I mean, they said
was there before?
Well, supposedly, I mean, that there was some original talk that it would get you a 2 or maybe even a 3, and then they've waited so long, and other quarterbacks have gone.
Yeah, but that's probably them floating that out there, like
maybe
these reports.
But the market. I mean, it's going to be a 5th to get him at this point.
They all come from agents. These markets, so it's
and if you're Fields, I just don't know if there's a landing spot where you are going to be the presumed starting quarterback, because the ones that don't have one are taking him in the draft.
The one that is kind of weird to me is Aaron Jones. He was cut by the Packers.
Yeah.
He is going to the Vikings.
Yeah.
I think that's weird. And the reason I think that's weird is, one, he just jumps right over to the rival. Have you noticed that there's a lot of guys staying in division and staying with, and then like just going across to their
Patrick Queen's doing that too, rival. The linebacker from the Ravens. He's going over to the Steelers.
A lot of Cowboys going to Washington because Dan Quinn yanks him out of Dallas. He played
Saquon goes from the Giants to the Eagles in division.
It's kind of weird.
It comes down to dollars and cents. Like,
familiarity.
Despite what Tiki Barber thinks, he's the one that tweeted that Saquon was dead, and go away.
Dead?
He was saying that
you're dead to me.
He's dead to me. He's dead to the Giants.
I thought you killed Saquon Barkley. He's very much alive. You just got a deal.
I think Saquon Barkley would whoop
it's over
Tiki Barber's ass. But dude, guys go where, like you said, familiarity and money. I mean, it's just...
Well, the thing about Jones I thought for sure the Cowboys would swoop in and sign Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Because they got him for $7 million, $6 million?
Yeah, pretty cheap.
Dude, that is super cheap.
Well,
and he's pretty good.
Well, and the Packers and Cincinnati actually did a solid because they traded Joe Mixon, but by waiting around until the running back market had kind of been gobbled up and then releasing Jones, and they thought they were releasing Mixon until they worked out the trade with Texans, you kind of left those guys a little high and dry, in that the running back market had already kind of blown its money. And all of a sudden you get put out there, and so I don't know how many true options were out there for some of these guys. But that's a nice get if you're Minnesota. Aaron Jones, when healthy, I mean, he missed a lot of time last year, but when he came back, dude, he was running through people. See the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I just saw him go into a team with a quarterback. I just think it's weird that Minnesota signed him without a quarter. Like, you let your quarterback go, and then you sign, like, it's like, why?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, you can get a young guy in the draft.
I think people don't love this draft in running backs. I know that. And the other one is that if you do have Sam Darnold as your guy, you're going to want to be able to run the football to take some of the pressure off him. And, for Aaron Jones, there just might not have been a lot of options out there that were going to give him $7 million.
Yeah, it's weird.
Again, and ultimately people go where the money is.
Right. Damian Lewis, former Seahawk, has signed with the Panthers.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am puzzled.
Offensive lineman.
I don't know what exactly they're doing.
Seahawks?
No, the Panthers, because they botched this thing a million different ways over the last 2 or 3 years. They got no first-round picks for Christian McCaffrey and Burns. They turned down 2 1s and a 2 for Burns, and then traded him for a 2 and a 5. They give up everything to go get Bryce Young, who absolutely stinks. And then you spent $160 million on 2 guards?
Well, it's a new GM. He obviously values
big guys in the middle,
the big boys up front.
Yeah.
Of all the teams,
they gave Robert Hunt $100 million. Who, he's a nice guard, but he's a run blocker. He's not a pass blocker. And last time I checked, you need some pass protection, because Bryce Young's running for his damn life, unless the whole plan is just, we're going to run the ball 40 times and let Bryce Young throw it 6.
Of all the teams, I can see the path for most.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, when you see a move, you just, you can kind of see where they're going with it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to like it. Like, even teams that are like the Raiders, or, there's just, you look at what they're doing, you're just like, okay, I see what they're thinking here, maybe.
Yeah.
And they tell you a lot about what they're thinking without telling you. Just read the tea leaves on the moves and what they're going to do. A lot of these teams are just going to jump into the draft for quarterbacks or whatever. Mm-hmm. The one team that you just can't really see the path is Carolina.
No.
Like, that's the one team where it's like, what? Although it is a new GM, and like I said, he obviously values protecting Bryce Young, but like you said, Robert, I don't know. It just the Panthers are low key one of the, if not the worst franchises in all of sports.
And they let Burns go for nothing, and they let Frankie Louvu, the Washington State product, who turned into a nice player. Like, he's a quality linebacker, and then let him go to Washington for like $10 million a year. And maybe he didn't want to come back. I just don't quite understand what Carolina's mission statement is. They confuse me and baffle me.
Power rank the following franchises in terms of worst: Panthers, Coyotes, A's, Hornets.
Oh my God.
Are those the 4 worst?
I would think so.
I was trying to think of the worst in every.
Well, Arizona,
because it's not. It used to be the Lions and the Browns,
and it's not.
And they're off the schneid.
I want
in baseball. It's clearly the A's, although
the A's.
The Rockies are creeping up on them.
I want everyone to realize that I understand that not everyone follows hockey. An NHL team, a professional hockey team, plays in an arena that seats 4,000 people.
That's used for Arizona State University.
4,000 people. The worst franchise in all of sports is the Arizona Coyotes. It's just...
So you think that's worse than the A's?
Well, the A's may play in a stadium. Look, the A's are a close second because, once again, let's also point out that the Mets broadcast team last year had to move into an obstructed view luxury suite that was not being used to call their game because there was a possum infestation in the visiting TV booth.
Hold on, everybody.
That did happen. They also have raw sewage that floods their stadium, but I would make the argument, is it not better to play in a ballpark that has a sewage, a stray cat, and a possum problem, but if you wanted to, could fill 35,000 people or whatever the Coliseum holds, as opposed to playing in a 4,000-seat arena? Like, come on.
What about the Hornets? I threw them out there.
They're pretty bad.
They're low-key bad.
They're all kinds of low-key bad.
Those 4 are right there. Power rank them. Let's go. Now.
Coyotes 1.
Worst?
A's 2.
Okay.
Boy, that's
probably
tough.
Hornets then Panthers.
I would probably say
because the Panthers went to a couple Super Bowls.
Yeah, the Panthers have been okay, and they've been okay recently. Yeah,
remember yesterday when you said the Panthers have no fans, or do they have any fans?
Yeah.
Luke Combs.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he basically said, he tweeted at them and said, what are we doing? No first-round pick for McCaffrey a few years back. Now no first-round pick for Burns. Are we just firebombing this whole team here? I usually don't comment on these types of things, but it's becoming slow torture at this point.
It is amazing to think about that the LA Rams a year and a half ago offered 2 1s and a 2 for Burns. And the Panthers were like, no. And then they were like, a 2 and a 5. Yes. That is literally the worst negotiation in the history.
Well, again, I pointed this out yesterday. That's 2 different regimes.
But did you see the Darnold Burns comparison? That the Panthers gave up more draft capital to get Sam Darnold than they received back for Brian Burns.
Oh God. Somebody said on the Vancouver Ford text line, it's time for an update.
What is the freaking Texans doing?
Yes. What are the freaking Panthers doing?
No, what is?
What is? The freaking
Grammatically
Panthers
incorrect, sir. Let's, okay, so I'm going to lay out. I would like you to say Panthers.
Yeah.
And then we'll splice it in.
Okay.
Okay, I'm laying out 3, 2, and 1.
Panthers.
What is the freaking Texans doing?
Yeah, can you splice that in there, Buckley?
Yeah, I'll work on something.
Put you to work.
Because for a long time, when they had Bill O'Brien as their coach / GM, it was the same thing. Like I just sit there sometimes and I'm like, what is happening? And you know why this happens a lot in the NFL? And I understand I would do the same thing. The problem is that so many times coaches or GM, especially if a coach has a say in personnel decisions, they don't do things that are beneficial to the team long term. They're just trying to hold on to their job for as long as possible.
Yeah.
So you make dumb decisions because you know that if you make smart decisions, sometimes the smart decision is to retreat, right? You got to take it on the chin for a year or two. but there's no league where taking it on the chin gets your ass fired faster than in the NFL. I mean, God, how many times have we seen a bad team hire someone and then we know they're bad, the team's not trying to be good, and then they're bad for 1 year, and then you get the GM or the coach fired. So when you're the GM and the owner's like, don't worry, we've got faith in you, and the GM's like, no. Especially if you're a young GM or a young coach, that may be your only chance to do it. So sometimes you make dumb decisions based on desperation because you're trying to cobble together some sort of horse crap team that can win 8 games. Like, I've heard this with I don't know, like with what Atlanta's doing or a team like Minnesota, where you're like, well, you're it's Pittsburgh with Russell Wilson. It's like, oh, well, you're not going to win with that. Well, no, you're probably not going to win a Super Bowl. You're not really a contender, but the idea is no one in this league wants to be a 4-win team for fear that it gets you the ziggy. And so you make decisions and God, you find a way to win 8 or 9 games, and then it justifies you to get another year and another massive payday.
Yeah, I just think they just need to do the football,
Yeah.
The best part of football is football. Yeah. And so you got to do football.
You just got to do football.
You do got to do football.